We are back with another Command Block challenge. This time I've challenged you guys to make your own custom boss fights, and you guys really delivered. I'm going to be featuring my favorite 7 with my top 3 favorites at the end. The rest of them are in no particular order, but make sure you stick around to see the last 3. Additionally, I made my own submission and put it right before the final 3, so make sure you stick around and watch all of these. The links to the originals will be in the video description. First up, by DracoPlays and ConquestMC, we actually have a little bit more in depth to this video than just the actual boss fight. However, I'm just going to be skipping ahead to the boss fight and letting you guys explore that for yourself. So of course there's some cool animations as well as just, a little bit of dialogue, which I think some lore always helps to it. Feel free to pause and read the dialogue or just view this on your own in the original source video. It's such a chaotic boss fight too, especially with the constant arena changing and everything. It is cool to watch just how chaotic this fight is. And yeah, going through 4 different phases is really sick. And if I remember correctly, the last final phase isn't even just like a phase, it's just like basically all the attacks at once and good luck surviving, which is really cool. Yeah, that's it. Pretty sick boss fight, pretty chaotic, a lot of different phases, which I think is awesome. There's more to this video, so you guys can watch it. Of course, the link will be in the description to the full version. Next up by Janimator is an unfinished boss fight, and this is the Blade of Miquella Phase 1. Now, I do want to caveat this, that Janimator did not finish this boss fight. I asked him to submit anyways, just because I thought it was pretty cool, and also I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring recently for the first time, so I thought it'd be really fun to include Melania Blade of Miquella. As I said, this is unfinished, but I think it's still pretty cool. You might be saying, well, hold on, isn't this a mod? Well, the rules for this challenge, I was a little bit more lenient on what's allowed in terms of resource packs and custom models and animations and whatnot. However, as long as the behavior is still command blocks, then it is permitted, and in this case, the behavior is still all command blocks. He did show me the command blocks. Everything that you see here is just some custom animations of block bench stuff on top of actual command blocks that make this boss fight happen. So, like I said, I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring, which is also part of one of the reasons that I really wanted to include this, and I think it looks sick. And even though it's unfinished, I think Janimator did a very good job with this. Also, I have no idea how you're supposed to dodge the waterfowl dance when you don't even have dodge. So, since it's unfinished, I'm going to wrap up the showcase of this one here. But, like I said, I think this is pretty sick, and I can't wait to see the final version of this when it comes out. Next up by Agents, we have the Bedrock Vessel boss fight. There's a couple different names. I saw him change the name around a couple times in Discord. But this one comes with some lore, which I think is pretty sick. So, I'm just going to be quiet and let you guys kind of see what's going on. Also, I see a lot of people using the structure blocks, like removing one layer at a time type of thing in this video, which I think is really funny that a lot of people use the same function for arena changes. Overall, I will also say this is probably one of the more chaotic boss fights in this video. There's a lot of moving parts and stuff. I will say one suggestion I would have is just make it brighter. It's a bit difficult to see in certain areas. Also good use of FMBEs, as with some of the later videos you guys are going to see too. That's a big chunk of damage. Next up by DairyChutoy, we have, of course, who is a returning competitor in these videos. A very different style of boss fight. You guys can kind of see that this is less of a traditional boss fight and much more of a kind of horror survival-esque type of boss fight. So I'm just going to let the video play out, but you guys can kind of get that vibe for yourself. I still think it counts as a boss fight. And I think he does a very good job of presenting it here, making kind of a unique experience. Like I said, it's just a little bit different. It's more of a survival horror than it is actually, you know, traditional boss fight, which I think is pretty cool. One interesting thing is I think this is entirely done in creative mode, which I think is really funny. Again, really unique boss fight. Also, just really enjoyed the horror elements. And of course, he does make his own music for these videos, which I think is pretty sick. And that is just a look into the pack that he uses. Once again, I've given permission because the stuff is still happening with command blocks. This is just a less laggy version of it, so I have no problem with him doing this. This is my boss. I call him the Black Blade Taleth. So he has a couple of different attacks. Now you can dodge them by using this sneak. It does a dash back that actually gives you a brief window of vulnerability frames. You also have a custom weapon. Whoa, oh my goodness, I'm gonna take a lot of damage here. I do have a custom weapon here that has 2 different attacks. Number 1, you have a glide attack combo, and you also have a jump attack. Now the jump attack is better for building up a stun. That's a stun right here. That's going to give you a ton of window to do some DPS. You guys are seeing some of the attacks that he has. And that's phase 2, so we turn to the teleport of the second arena. He is actually mid-stun when I teleport him. So I will say, forgo some of the cinematic appeal just to really focus on the gameplay here. That's what I really wanted to have, was just a really strong gameplay element. And so yeah. You can see in the second phase he does gain a new attack. On top of he is stronger and faster in this new arena. And he's actually going to go through his special attacks a lot quicker in this. Oops. As you can see, I'm not the best at dodging, which is why I have such heavy armor. And that's about it for mine. Let's go to the top 3. Alright, coming in 3rd place by Mox Fade 01 is the Vorpion, which is a Void Scorpion. Now, one of the things that's really impressive about this boss fight is, although the arena might not be the best, the boss itself is actually really cool, especially for those of you guys who know how commands work and know FMBEs and armor stands and all this stuff that would go on to making a custom model like this. It's super difficult. The fact that I did all of this into a coherent boss fight is super impressive, which is why it definitely deserves to be in the top 3, because like I said, I mean, just the work that goes into making a boss like this, really any kind of mob like this, is not easy. And you'll even see, it's not only does he have the model itself, he actually has different animations for different attacks, which is, like I said, a super difficult thing to do. So, super impressive that he's able to do this. I mean, he even has, like, basically grab attacks. One suggestion I would put is take off the sidebar before you record. That'd be one suggestion I would have. I think it's also pretty cool. Not only do you have these things, but they're actually gravity things. Like, I think they pull you in, if I'm not mistaken. You get to like the second phase where it actually puts on armor that makes him immune, which I think is also pretty cool. also good use of audio cues during this fight as well, I would say. And the fact that he actually picks blocks up off the ground, like it's not just randomized, it's actually what blocks is he standing on, I think is also really cool. Not necessarily the most complicated thing in the world, you just use the Latern Man, but it's just a nice little extra touch. Like I said, overall, just a really cool, unique boss fight. It's not quite over, of course. He does this final gravity attack, which I think is always cool when bosses do have some kind of final stand thing. Just makes it a little more interesting, I think. Yeah, just a well-designed boss fight overall, I would say. So, I mean, this is just pretty sick. Like, look at the work that it did to make this model. Like, that's a lot of different entities all at once. So, I think that's just awesome. So, really good job on this one. Thank you for your submission. All right, in second place by Obama Gamer, we have the SoulKeeper, or I don't know. There's a couple different versions of the submission. This should be the newest version of the submission. It's just the fact that it's a top-down bullet hell. Number one, it's super unique, but it's also really well done. Once again, it's all commands other than a couple of extra sprite textures that are, like I said, allowed within this challenge. It's really cool. I also want to point out the sword swipe is not the original version. I had seen some of his earlier versions of this. I'm just realizing that is his mouse on the screen that's controlling where he's looking. I'm actually not sure what's going on there. Not quite sure how he did that. He did say that he actually has a no-hit version of this, which is just really impressive. I know he did do some additional tweaks after the submission, but he didn't record it, so this is the newest submission that we have. Overall, a really unique boss fight. I just absolutely love every aspect of it. Once again, it's just also super unique to have like an actual top-down bullet hell. I am so really curious how he did the facing direction with his mouse. I'm wondering if that's a control scheme command. I haven't really messed around with that. That's on. That is not my mouse on the screen. I also just love the look of the Fat Olay. Yeah, just amazing boss fight. Oh, go to the first person view. And look at all of these commands. This is impressive. Finally, I think we probably all saw this coming. Mango is once again back with another boss fight. He got first place because, just quite frankly, he deserves it. It is just a beautiful boss fight, a beautiful arena, animations, phases. The design of the boss fight itself is just really cool. He's won multiple times on these boss fights before, and he just does a really good job. One of the things I do really appreciate about Mango's boss fights is they don't grow old. Like, it's not doing the same thing over and over and over again, as with certain boss fights. Even in normal games this happens. Mango tends to keep it fresh. He doesn't do one thing for all too long, and really does actually challenge your skills, I think. It's just really cool. He also does have a couple of like special weapons that are unique to this boss fight, I think. I don't know if that's part of what he's making, but it's just really cool. Not to mention, he puts a lot of work into the phase transitions, just the parts in between the combat, the cutscenes like you're going to see later. He puts a lot of effort into those. I'm too lazy. I saw that in my own boss fight. I just actually skipped over the cutscene because I ran out of time to make it. So I think the fact that he's willing to put in that effort to do these really tedious things is really cool and really impressive. This is what I mean. You're just constantly changing what you're doing. Which I just think is really fun. And this is my favorite part right here. The amount of work that went into this is insane. Just like actually giving your boss a mech suit cutscene mid-game is really fun. Also, I believe it actually flashes white whenever you hit him. I'm just realizing that the first time, which means it's actually hitting replace item on all the FMBEs temporarily, which I think is pretty sick. Is that it's just very difficult to give first place to anyone else because Mango, as always, just does such an amazing job with these. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for coming. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this set of videos. And quite frankly, after watching through all of these, I'm actually really disappointed in my boss. I did definitely cut some corners when it came to some of the cutscene, animation, that kind of stuff. I was much more focused on the gameplay, but oh well. I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, support the guys, the original videos. The links will be in the description. Leave a comment in this video as well as the original creators video. Which one is your favorite and why? And yeah, let me know. Do you guys agree with my ranking? Do you disagree? What kind of challenges would you guys like to see next time? Let me know, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.